In our line of work, the loud moments are easy to spot. The quieter ones take longer to admit. This story started with a door left open in a house that liked everything closed, and a kind of tidiness that felt like someone had been erased on purpose. Camille Ardent builds things that don't forgive mistakes. When you spend your life making corners meet and seams disappear, you notice the same precision in the way people push you out without raising their voice. A few steps in, it was clear this wasn't going to be about money. It was going to be about place. This is the part she still talks about plainly. I got to Greenwich 3 days before Christmas because I'd convinced myself early meant welcome. The driveway was cleared. The wreath was perfect. The windows glowed like the house was trying to look soft. Marta opened the door before I could knock all the way. She was still in her apron, hair pulled back, hands smelling like lemon cleaner. "Camille, you're here." Her face did that thing it always did, like she was relieved someone real had walked in. "I came early. Thought I'd help." Marta hesitated. Her eyes slid past me, down the hallway. "They're upstairs. Mr. Ardent's office." I stepped inside and shrugged my coat off, already hearing the click of laptop keys from somewhere deeper in the house. "Everything okay?" I started. Marta lowered her voice. "Your room." That was all she said. 2 words. A warning wrapped in a whisper. I walked toward the stairs anyway. Mom's voice floated down first, clipped and controlled. "No, we're not doing white linens. It photographs like a hospital." Sophie's voice. Lighter. "Ivory. Warm ivory. It reads expensive without trying." I stopped at the landing, listening to them talk about table settings like it was a deal memo. I kept going. My old room was at the end of the hall. Same door. Same brass knob. The door was open. There was a roller suitcase by the bed. Not mine. A garment bag hanging from the closet door. A pair of heels on the rug, pointed like they'd been placed for a photo. I stepped in and felt my stomach drop. My framed sketch from art school was gone. The little shelf I'd built with my own hands was bare. The box where I kept letters, gone. Everything I'd left behind over the years, packed into clear plastic bins stacked in the corner like storage from a move-out. A strip of blue painter's tape was stuck to the top bin. C. Ardent. Not my name written like a daughter. My name written like an item. Footsteps behind me. My mother filled the doorway. Hair perfect. Phone in hand. Eyes scanning the room like she was checking staging. "Oh," she looked at the bins, then at me. "You're already up here. What happened to my stuff?" She walked past me like I was part of the furniture. We needed the room. For who? A guest. Investor family. They're staying through the weekend. "It's Christmas. Camille, don't start." Her voice stayed even, like she was calming a client. "You don't live here." My throat tightened. I stared at the tape on the bin. She finally glanced at my face, then spoke softer, the way she did when she wanted to sound reasonable. "Your things are safe. Marta packed them. You can take them with you when you leave." "When I leave." She adjusted the duvet corner with 2 fingers. "You can use the guest room over the garage. It's quiet. You'll like it." In that moment, the house felt very large and very clean, like it had been sanitized of anything inconvenient. I heard myself breathe in, slow, careful. "You moved me out." Mom's gaze flicked to the hallway, like she didn't want anyone hearing. "Lower your voice. I'm not yelling. You're getting emotional." In our notes. This is usually where the temperature changes without anyone touching the thermostat. I picked up one of the bin lids and looked inside. Photos, books, a set of old drafting tools. My childhood blanket folded tight like it didn't deserve air. Sophie appeared behind Mom, holding a tablet, eyes bright with that polished patience she used on strangers. "Hey," she said, like we'd just run into each other at a mall. "You're early. That's proactive." I turned and looked at both of them. Mom tucked her phone into her pocket. "Come downstairs." We have a lot to do. I closed the bin lid gently, because breaking anything in that room would have turned into proof that I was the problem. Fine, I said. I'll come down. And I walked out without taking a single thing, because I could already feel it in my chest. This wasn't a homecoming, it was a placement. If you stay with us through this one, you'll see what happens when someone tries to turn a person into an asset and realizes too late they can't. The guest room over the garage smelled like cedar and new paint. Someone had tried to make it welcoming. Fresh towels folded tight, a small bowl of mints on the nightstand, the kind of care you give when you want credit for trying. I set my bag down and sat on the edge of the bed without taking my shoes off. A knock came quick, then the door opened before I answered. Sophie leaned in, tablet tucked to her chest. You okay? I looked at her. She'd practiced that tone. Concern without commitment? They moved me out. She winced, just enough to register. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her, lowering her voice. Mom didn't want a scene. Investors are sensitive right now. I laughed once. Short. I'm the scene. That's not what I meant. She shifted her weight. You know how things work. I did. I always had. Growing up, there were categories in our house. Julian was potential. Sophie was presentation. I was the deviation they'd never figured out how to file. My father liked to explain me to people. Camille's creative. Like it was a condition. Like it explained why I didn't fit the rest of the sentence. Sophie glanced at my bag. You didn't bring much. I didn't plan on leaving my room behind. She nodded, then changed direction. Dinner's at 7. Formal. Mom wants everyone downstairs by 6:30. Everyone. She hesitated. Family, guests, investors, friends, she corrected. Try to be flexible. That word again. Flexible. It had followed me my whole life. Be flexible when Julian took credit for my work on school projects. Be flexible when Dad skipped my graduation to close a deal. Be flexible when Mom told people my shop was a phase. Sophie reached for the door, then stopped. You've been quiet lately. I've been busy. With what? Work. She smiled, polite and distant. Right. That. She left before I could say anything else. I sat there for a minute, listening to the house through the walls. Voices downstairs, laughter warming up like an engine. Later, in the hallway, my father passed me without breaking stride. Camille. A nod. Glad you made it. Glad you noticed. He paused, finally looking at me. We'll talk later. About what? He smiled the way he did in meetings. Your future. He walked on, shoes quiet on the runner. I stood there alone, staring at the space where my room used to belong, and felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, not sadness. Recognition. This was how they'd always seen me. Temporary, useful, adjustable. And I'd spent years making myself smaller so I wouldn't disturb the layout. I left the house before sunrise the next morning, not quietly, just early enough that no one thought to stop me. The air outside had that sharp, clean bite that comes before snow. My car windows were fogged, and I wiped a circle clear with my sleeve before backing out. No goodbye. No note. The garage door rolled down like it always did, smooth and obedient. The drive north steadied me. By the time I pulled into Beacon, the sky had gone pale. My shop sat at the edge of the lot, metal siding streaked with rust near the seams. It wasn't pretty from the outside. That had never mattered. Inside. The lights buzzed on one row at a time. The smell hit next. Sawdust, oil, cold steel, familiar, honest. Evan was already there, jacket tossed over a chair, coffee balanced on a beam. You're early. So are you. He grinned. Client meeting at 10. I wanted to finish the mock-up. I dropped my bag and rolled up my sleeves. Let's see it. We stood over the work table together. The staircase model took up most of the surface. Walnut treads laid out clean. Steel supports measured to the millimeter. Chelsea firm called again. Evan said, "They want confirmation by Friday. They'll get it." He glanced at me, then back at the model. "Everything good?" "Yeah." I adjusted a clamp. "Just family stuff." He nodded once. No follow-up. People here knew when not to pry. By mid-morning, the shop filled in. Tools humming. Someone playing low music near the back. Maya walked in carrying a box of fasteners and set it down with a thud. Client from Midtown confirmed. She said, "Deposit cleared? How much?" 80,000. Good. I made a note on the board. Schedule delivery for mid-January. She hesitated. "You sure you're okay taking this on right now?" I looked around the space, at the work in progress, at the hands moving without asking permission. "We'll manage." Around noon, my phone buzzed, a number I recognized but didn't save. I stepped outside to answer. "This is Victor Lang," the voice said. Calm, polished. "We met briefly last spring. Greenwich." I remembered. "Investor. One of my father's." "You left early," he continued. "Your work came up after—" I leaned against the wall, cold seeping through my jacket. "Did it?" "It did. Impressive operation you're running here." "Thank you." A pause. Then, "Your family speaks of it differently." "I'm aware." Another pause. Longer this time. "If you ever want to talk independently, let me know." "I will." We hung up. I went back inside and washed my hands at the sink, watching the water turn cloudy, then clear again. By the time the crew broke for lunch, I felt grounded, tired, steady. No one here needed an explanation for why my hands shook a little when I picked up my phone. No one here had ever asked me to be flexible. They just asked me to build something that held. I went back to Greenwich that afternoon because leaving without my things felt unfinished, like letting them decide the shape of my exit. The house was quieter than it had been the night before. No laughter warming up, no music. Just the low hum of the printer somewhere upstairs. Marta met me in the hall again, hands clasped tight in front of her. "They're in the office," she said. "Doors closed." "Thank you." She didn't move out of my way right away. Her voice dropped. "You don't have to go in there. I know." I took the stairs slowly. Halfway up, I heard my father's voice. Steady, measured. "We keep it calm. No confrontation." My brother's voice followed. Lighter, confident. "She won't refuse in front of everyone." I stopped. Another voice joined in. My mother. "Frame it as concern, not failure." Julian again. "And once she's inside, we integrate her client list. Quietly." The word inside landed wrong, like a door locking. I leaned against the wall and listened, heart beating hard enough that I worried it would give me away. Sophie spoke next. "We should prepare for pushback." She gets emotional. Julian laughed. "Then we manage it." Footsteps shifted. A chair scraped. Someone cleared their throat. "We go after dinner," my father said. "Slides first. Numbers keep it factual." I stepped back before they opened the door. At the end of the hall, the printer room light was on. A stack of papers sat warm in the tray, corners still curled. I picked up the top page. The title sat centered, clean font, navy blue, Camille Ardent Risk and Redirection. My hands shook as I flipped through. Charts, bullet points. A neat line estimating my annual income at $78,000. A section labeled Emotional Decision-Making in Creative Fields. Another slide titled Brand Inconsistency and Public Perception. There it was, in black and white, a life reduced to a liability. The last page stopped me cold. Objection management. Under it, a list. Mother to reassure. Father to reframe. Sophie to handle optics. Julian to close. I took out my phone and photographed every page, one after another. "Steady hands now. Clear." Behind me, the printer clicked again, spitting out another copy like the house itself wanted to be sure. "At Revenge Sins." This is usually the moment people expect shouting, or tears, or a slammed door. What we noticed instead was the pause, the kind that comes when something finally lines up. I slipped the papers back where they were and walked downstairs. Mom was in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. She covered the receiver when she saw me. "You're back. Just grabbing my things." She studied my face, searching. "You look tired." "I am." She lowered her voice. "Dinner's important tonight. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I nodded once. "I won't." That seemed to relieve her. She turned back to her call. Outside, the air felt heavier. I sat in my car for a moment without starting it, letting the quiet settle. They thought this was about helping me. They thought numbers on a screen could corner me. By the time I pulled out of the driveway, the plan had already changed. I was still going to dinner. I was just going to let them go first. Dinner moved the way it always did. Slow at first, then louder as wine loosened shoulders and people leaned into old stories. The table was long, too long, the kind that made distance feel intentional. I sat between an aunt I barely knew and a man introduced as a friend of the firm. He shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. "So you're Camille," he said, smiling. "Creative one." I returned the smile. "That's what they call me." Across the table, Julian laughed at something my father said, easy and practiced. Sophie caught my eye once, then looked away. My mother kept refilling glasses, staying busy. Plates were cleared, dessert appeared, forks clinked against porcelain. My father stood and tapped his glass once. Not loud. He didn't need to be, if I could have everyone's attention. The room quieted. "This year has been challenging for our family," he continued, voice calm. "But we believe in addressing things directly, together." His eyes flicked to me. "Just long enough." Julian rose next, already holding the remote. The projector hummed to life behind him. "We want to talk about Camille's future," he said, out of care, out of concern. The first slide appeared, clean, professional. My name centered at the top. A chart followed, bars rising, then flattening. "As you can see," Julian went on, "the income ceiling in niche fabrication is limited. National averages hover around 78,000 annually." A few heads nodded. Someone murmured. I stayed still. Another slide. Words I'd already memorized. Emotional decision-making. Brand inconsistency. My mother leaned forward. "We just don't want you struggling when there are better options." Julian smiled at me. "This isn't about judgment. It's about stability." I stood. The chair scraped softly against the floor. Every sound felt louder than it should have. "Before we go further," I said, keeping my voice even, "I'd like to clarify something." Julian hesitated. "Camille, we can discuss this privately." "You printed handouts." I replied, "This doesn't feel private." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder, thick, heavy. "These are my tax returns for the past year," I said, holding them up. "Verified. Filed." I opened it and slid a page onto the table. My revenue last year was $465,000. Net profit just over $230,000. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. A fork clattered. Julian's smile faltered. "That can't be right." "It is." I laid out another page. Bank statements, client contracts, deposits. I turned to the room. "If my work is insignificant, why do you need it to survive?" Silence settled in, hard and sudden. My father stepped forward. "This isn't appropriate." "You planned a presentation titled Risk and Redirection." I said, "You labeled my life a liability." My mother's face drained of color. "Camille, please." Sophie stared at the floor. A chair scraped back. My grandmother stood. "I've heard enough," Colette said, voice steady. "Laurent asked me for a loan last week. A large one." Heads turned. He couldn't explain why. She continued, "Now I understand." Julian's hand tightened around the remote. "There are missing funds," Colette went on. "Several million. And rather than address that, you thought you'd fold Camille's business into yours, use her reputation as insulation." The man beside me exhaled sharply. "Is that true?" My father opened his mouth, then closed it. Colette looked at me. "You built something real, quietly, without help." She faced the table again. "This ends tonight." People began to stand. Low voices filled the space. Coats were grabbed. Conversations broke off mid-sentence. I gathered my folder and slid it back into my jacket. Julian finally spoke, his voice tight. "You didn't have to do this." I met his eyes. "You already did." I walked toward the door. No one stopped me. Outside, the cold hit hard, clean, bracing. Behind me, the house buzzed with damage control. Ahead of me, the night stayed quiet. The first call came the next morning, just after 7. I was in the shop, jacket still on, keys not even off the hook. "Camille." Julian's voice sounded rough, like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk." I didn't answer right away. I was watching Evan line up a cut, hands steady, waiting for my nod. "Not today," I said, and hung up. By noon, the email started, short ones at first, subject lines that tried to sound reasonable. "Let's reset. We can fix this." I didn't open them. I muted the thread and went back to work. That afternoon, a client called. Midtown, the dining table commission we'd been finalizing. "I got a strange message," he said. "Careful. Someone raised concerns about your operation, said there might be instability." My grip tightened on the phone. "Did they say who?" He paused. "They implied family." "I can send documentation," I said. "Anything you need, do that." I hung up and felt the air in the shop shift. Not panic, alertness. By evening, Julian showed up. I heard the door before I saw him. Expensive shoes on concrete, wrong rhythm for the space. He walked in like he owned it, eyes scanning, lips curling slightly. "So, this is it. Don't touch anything." He stopped by the workbench, hands raised. "Relax. I'm here to make you an offer." Evan glanced over from across the room. I gave him a small shake of my head. Julian stepped closer. 50-50. Partnership. We fold this into the firm. Clean slate. "No." He laughed under his breath. "You're emotional right now. I'm clear." He leaned in, voice low. "You embarrassed us. Investors are nervous. This fixes that." "You fix it." His jaw tightened. "Family takes care of family. I don't hire thieves." The word landed heavy. He straightened. "You think you're untouchable now? I think you should leave." His smile came back, thinner this time. Things get difficult when you don't play along. He walked out without another word. That night, a review appeared online. A 1 star. No name I recognized. Claimed missed deadlines. Poor quality. Another followed an hour later. Different account. Same tone. My phone buzzed past midnight. Blocked number. Breathing on the other end. Then a click. At Revenge Sins, we've seen this pattern before. When control slips, it doesn't vanish. It claws. The next morning, a package sat by my door. No return address. Inside, a printout of my shop's listing. Red circles drawn around my name. I folded it carefully and set it aside. By the end of the week, 2 clients hesitated. One paused a deposit. The damage was small, intentional. I called my lawyer. "Document everything," she said. Screenshots, dates, times. I opened a folder on my desktop and named it simply Evidence. Then I went back to work, because stopping was exactly what he wanted. The police station smelled like old coffee and disinfectant, the kind of place that made everything feel flatter than it was. The officer across the desk had a legal pad open, pen resting on the margin. He looked tired, but attentive. "You're saying this started after a family dispute, after I refused a business demand," I replied. "It escalated when I didn't back down." He nodded slowly. "And your brother has direct access to your clients. He knows their names. He knows how to sound credible." I slid my phone across the desk. Screenshots lined up. Timestamps clean. Fake reviews. I continued. Calls from blocked numbers. A visit to my shop where he made threats. The officer glanced through the screen, eyebrows lifting slightly. "You save everything like this." "I build for a living," I said. "Details matter." He wrote something down, then looked up. "This is enough for a temporary restraining order. You'll need to appear in court." "I will." The courthouse was quieter than I expected. No drama. No raised voices, just folders, benches, and people waiting for decisions that would change their routines. Julian arrived late. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. Julian didn't look at me. When the judge asked him to speak, he stood stiffly. "This is a family disagreement," he said. "My sister is overreacting." The judge didn't look impressed. She turned to me. "Do you feel unsafe?" "I feel targeted," I said, "and interfered with." She reviewed the documents again. Long pause, then a nod. "The temporary restraining order is granted," she said. "No contact, no proximity. This includes your place of business." Julian's chair scraped back. "This is ridiculous." The judge's voice sharpened. "You will follow the order." Outside, the air felt lighter. Not relief. Clarity. At revenge sins. This is where we usually see people soften. Camille didn't. She organized. 2 days later, my phone rang at 3 a.m. Unknown number. "You think you've won," Julian's voice hissed. "You've destroyed everything." I let him talk. Every word recorded. Every threat clear. "I'm watching you," he said. "This isn't over." "It is," I said, and ended the call. The violation hearing came fast. The judge listened to the recording once, then again. "Order extended to 2 years," she said. "Any further contact will result in criminal charges." Julian's lawyer put a hand on his arm. Julian shook it off. As we walked out, he finally looked at me. "You're dead to me." I met his stare. "You decided that a long time ago." Back at the shop, Evan handed me a coffee without asking. "All good. For now." He nodded and went back to work. I opened my laptop and added a new file to the folder. Violation. Then I closed it and picked up my gloves, because the day still had weight to carry. The contract almost fell apart on a Tuesday. The call came while I was measuring a beam. Tape stretched tight between my hands. "Camille." The voice on the other end sounded careful. "We need to talk about timing." I stepped away from the table. "What changed?" "Concerns," he said. "Things we heard. Instability. Legal issues. I can send documentation." I replied. "Everything is clean." A pause. "Papers shifting." "Send it." I sent the restraining order, the violation notice, emails from my attorney, client references going back years. Nothing dramatic, just facts, lined up. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again. "We're moving forward," he said. Same terms. I leaned against the wall and let the tension drain out slow. Not relief, just steadiness. Work filled the days after that. Not celebratory, focused. Evan stayed late more than once, sleeves rolled up, radio low. "You should take a day." He offered one night, handing me a bottle of water. "After this run," I said. "Then, maybe." Maya taped a new schedule to the board. Delivery dates, install windows, names written in marker. "This one's big," she said, tapping the top line. I know. A letter came in the mail the following week. Cream envelope, familiar handwriting. Dinner soon. Just us. Love, Colette. I folded it and set it in my pocket. The gallery opening happened without fanfare. White walls, clean light, people who looked at the work longer than they looked at me. A man in a gray coat stood near the staircase piece, hands in his pockets. "This is solid," he said. "Who taught you?" "I did." He nodded once. "That tracks." Later, back at the shop, I locked up alone. The lights clicked off one by one. Outside, the night was quiet enough to hear my own breath. Things weren't fixed. They were holding, and that was enough to keep going. I met my father once more, a week after the papers were filed. Not at the house, not at an office, a quiet diner off the highway, the kind with vinyl booths and coffee that tasted burned no matter when you ordered it. He was already there when I arrived. Jacket wrinkled, hands folded too tight on the table. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice lower than I remembered. I slid into the booth across from him. "You wanted to talk." He nodded, looked down, then up again. I was wrong. The words came out stiff, like they hadn't been used in a while. About your work, about how we treated you, about that night. I listened, didn't interrupt. Let him finish. "I thought I was protecting the family," he added. "I didn't see what it was costing you." I took a breath. "You saw? You just decided it was acceptable. That landed." He didn't argue. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know." "I know," I replied. "And I believe you." He looked relieved, then hopeful. "Just for a second. I'm still choosing distance." I continued. "That part doesn't change." His shoulders dropped. "I understand." We sat in silence after that. No rush, no closure speech, just the clink of dishes somewhere behind the counter. When we stood to leave, he hesitated, then reached out, stopped himself, stepped back instead. "Take care of yourself, Camille." I am. Back in Beacon that night, I unlocked the shop and stood there with the lights off. The space felt different now, not louder, not bigger, just mine. Camille Ardent didn't need to prove anything anymore. She'd already built the life she was trying to protect. Some stories end with doors slamming. This one ended with space. And if you stayed with us through it, you already know why that matters.